My name is Carolyn Hanna, and I'm with Corker Insurance, and I'm going to lead you through cyber insurance and all that you need to know today. Our agenda is, first of all, the introduction of me. We have the current state of cybersecurity and data breach risk, the types of breaches, the types of attacks, and how you can protect your business. I'm Carolyn Hanna, as I mentioned, with Corkle Insurance. My contact information is listed here. Please contact me with any questions after the seminar. So what is cyber risk? So the current state of cybersecurity and data breach risk. The stats are pretty phenomenal. There's been 245 million records breached in the first half of 2015, 888 breach incidents, 1,358,000 records breached each day, 56,000 records breached each hour, and 943 records breached each minute. The current state of the private and public sector, 62% of the breaches are malicious outsider, 22% are accidental loss, 12% malicious insider, and 2% are hacktivists. In the current state, the number of breaches by incident, by type, identity theft is your greatest breach, followed by financial access, which can be a really big problem for a company, existential data, account access, and just a nuisance hack. So cyber risk, the top 5 reasons why your business needs cyber risk coverage. Data breaches and cyber attacks are becoming more common and have increased 62% in the last year alone. And I'd have to say they're even increasing at a more rapid rate. I've been seeing more claims come in from my clients recently. 31% of all breaches have occurred in organizations of 2,500 or fewer employees, and 30% in organizations of fewer than 250 employees. All industries are vulnerable to a data breach or cyber hack. No one is excluded. You can see education, financial services, nonprofits, professional services, manufacturing, and hospitality and retail sectors. And the average cost of a data breach has risen to $5.8 million. Now that's for a really large company, but it still can add up quick for smaller companies. When you experience a data breach, most people don't know what to do, and they're seeing costs of at least $200 per compromised record. So it's something that is really becoming costly. So here's the types of breach incidents. We've been talking about the numbers, but here's the types. Malicious outsider. This is like an individual or group that seeks to gain protected information by infiltrating and taking over the profile of a trusted user from outside the organization. So the outsider sends some different emails, and we'll get into that. The malicious insider is someone from within the organization, an employee, a contractor, a business associate, who has inside information on the organization's security and computer data, and can get in there and steal whatever they need to. Accidental loss is just as it sounds. Information's inadvertently made public. In talking about the different types of hacks, the first one I want to talk about is a phishing email. We've all been sent these. We just have to be very careful not to click on them. What they are is attempting to acquire sensitive information such as passwords, usernames, or credit card details for malicious reasons. Often the email looks to be from a trusted entity or a person. We have our clients clicking on these quite often, and sometimes it leads to money being transferred or things that you would never expect to happen. So we have to be very careful about the phishing email. Socially engineered Trojans, an end user browses to a website, so you're online, you think you're going to a retail website, and a pop-up prompts you, and it says, hey, you need to, it's usually like an antivirus software, hey, click on this, you're being attacked by a virus. And the person clicks on it, and that allows the malware to come down into the computer, and now the hacker has access to the computer. So these are very common, and they're becoming more and more common. Unpatched software, this is another big one. Often programs like Java, Adobe Reader, Windows, they're not updated and thus unpatched, and when that happens, they'll allow a hole in the security, and hackers know how to get through and, again, gain access to your computer. You guys have been hearing about it. There's been a ton of cyber attacks in the news. Target's one of the biggest ones we've heard of. Target had 40 million debit card numbers stolen, 70 million names, addresses, and email addresses. 200 million was spent to reissue 21.8 million cards. 100 million spent to upgrade payment terminals to the chip. And they would pay for credit monitoring as well. So all of that is included in the cost that they had to pay out. Plus, they also had to spend money, and I don't think people think about that, but they have to spend money to kind of get their name, back into good graces with the public. Sony, hackers used the phishing emails to penetrate the network in 2015. North Korea took credit for the hack due to the movie. I think it was The Interview. It was a huge PR nightmare for the company. All these really bad emails that people never should have read got out to the public. Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're all familiar with them. They go by Anthem. Personal information for 78 million people was taken out of their database, and many lawsuits are still pending. This is one that was very interesting that I found when I was researching, especially for the manufacturing sector. A German manufacturing company in 2014 lost control of a furnace, which caused major damage to the plant. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it was major, major damage. It was assumed to be a human error, but after a forensic review, it was determined to be a cyber attack. Hackers used a spear phishing campaign, an email campaign. They sent to target employees at the company legitimate-looking emails that, when they were opened, gave access to the passwords and usernames that were used to break into the facilities, furnace, and control system. So what they thought was just someone inadvertently, messing with the controls on the furnace turned out to be an actual targeted hack that did a lot of property damage. Normally we see shutdown in someone's computer system, but not actual property damage. So this is a whole new reason to get cyber insurance. So cyber insurance, this is what we're here to talk about, basically is one way to insure yourself against all of the cyber attacks that are going on. There's two parts to a policy. There's the liability insuring agreements, and there's the first party insuring agreements. So the liability coverages, it's just what you think. It's third party, just like general liability. It's for lawsuits. It has network and information security liability and regulatory defense expenses, including fines and penalties. Believe it or not, if the information gets out and your state has a law, you can be fined and have to pay penalties, depending on what got out. The first party insuring agreement, you might see this on your policy as data breach expense. First party means it's actually the expenses that you as the business owner are experiencing. It covers things such as crisis management, event expense, security breach remediation, and notification, computer program and electronic data restoration. That's a huge one for people. Computer fraud, funds transfer fraud, e-commerce extortion, and business interruption and additional expense. So here's some claim examples. This will help you understand the insurance a little bit better. The network and information security liability. So a hacker obtains sensitive personal information from the insured's computer system. As a result, a number of customers brought a claim against the insured for allowing access to their personal information. A policy written with this coverage would provide damages and defense costs to settle the claim. So here you would not have to pay for your defense, a legal team, or any of the costs associated with it, paying the people for the loss of their information. Communications and media liability is another coverage that can be purchased within the policy. A lawsuit is brought against the insured by another entity, allowing that their online content and or organizational branding has been plagiarized and their trademarks infringed upon. Something a lot of people don't think about, but it happens. So again, this policy will provide damages if you have to pay this other company for infringing, and the defense costs, which we all know can add up very quickly with the amount, depending on which law firms are involved. The crisis management and event expense. Think of an officer of a company had their laptop stolen, which contains 50,000 customer records, including personal contact info. So the cost for hiring a public relations firm to restore customer confidence, kind of what Target had to do with all their bad press, and then it'll also help mitigate the negative publicity. So that's something that people don't think about that they might need, and it could add up. Security breach remediation and notification. So in this example, a skilled cyber criminal hacks into the internal processing system of a retailer. Names, addresses, credit information for more than 50,000 of the customers are stolen. So obviously you're going to have to get a lawyer right away. So the policy covers the cost of retaining legal to assist with the breach response. The legal team helps you figure out what you need to notify, who you need to notify, and what you need to tell them. It'll include forensics. How did this hack happen? What happened? How did it happen? And they're going to figure that out. It's going to check with your governmental agencies to see what requirements and expenses are necessary. And then credit monitoring for all the impacted individuals and identity theft protection. So you can see that can add up really quickly. Computer program and electronic data restoration. Computer virus corrupts a company's software and data. Just comes in and blows up everything, and you can't work that day. So this policy will cover the cost to repair and do the restoration of the computer program and electronic data. And we know that can add up quickly depending on how many hours they spend. Computer fraud, we're seeing more and more of this. An organized crime ring gains unauthorized access to the insured's accounts payable in their computer system and alters the bank routing information on an outgoing payment. $1 million is transferred to the crime ring's account. This policy pays the direct loss. If you have enough in coverage, pays the direct loss of the insured's money, securities, or other property. So if you have $1 million in coverage, you're going to have $1 million covered here. Funds transferred fraud. This is another one we're seeing a lot of. A CFO receives an email. We had this happen to one of our clients that appears to be from their bank, but it was not. The CFO opens the email, which activates an embedded malware that reads keystrokes from their computer. The hacker uses this to obtain banking and password information to initiate a fraudulent wire transfer from the company's bank. Now, in this situation, if you have it set up at your company where 3 people or 2 people have to be notified before a wire transfer, that would mitigate this. But if you didn't and the money gets transferred, you need to have this coverage to have it paid. Employee dishonesty and crime doesn't cover this because when it goes, if it looks like it's parted with, you part with it yourself by just saying okay to it, like you click okay and the money goes, then you don't have coverage unless you have a cyber policy. Something to think about. So you are covered for any of the money that is transferred out of the bank. One company recently had a $25,000 fraudulent transfer. We heard of one in the area that had a $600,000 transfer. So it's something that we should all look at and make sure that we have the coverage in place. E-commerce extortion. This is something that just happened to my client. A company receives a series of notes that threaten to hack into its customer database and disclose all the contact information to the general public. So expenses to manage the incident and monies or security paid to the extortioner. And then we'll talk about risk management. I never finished that. One last thing I wanted to say is that when we're talking about all these different types of hacks that happen, I actually had a phone call from one of my clients the other day, and it's a very small contractor. I would say they have 20 employees. And she was asking me, hey, do I have coverage for a ransom hack that had just happened? They had a virus come in, take over their computer system, just like you saw in that video, and it said, we demand $5,000 in order to release your software back to you. So they didn't respond in a timely way, and they thought that the hack was going away because they had their data backed up off-site. Well, when the data came back down, it was only half of it was able to come back down. So now they're paying they're paying people to get the rest of their information. And so it's costing them quite a bit of money. So we've had a long discussion about what type of cyber insurance they should get. And but if it can happen to somebody with like 20 employees, I mean, it can pretty much happen to anyone. And these ransom hacks, they're not asking for a ton of money, but if you don't pay it, they're going to then, corrupt your data, and you're going to be stuck. So something to think about and something to insure against for sure. Risk management is very important. As we discussed during the PowerPoint here, if you don't patch your software, you're leaving yourself vulnerable. You need to have conversations with your employees. You have to say to them, do not click on these type of emails. You have to constantly make people aware that what phishing emails are. If you don't know the person, or if it looks suspicious, you should just delete that email. Because if someone really wants to get a hold of you, they will pick up the phone and they will call you. So it's very important that your company also has some sort of antivirus on there, malware protection, something that weeds out those emails so they don't come directly to your employees. And also training is just very important. Like I said, having the talks with them, but also training your managers on the way that the things that they should be looking for when it happens. So the two ways to protect yourselves are buying the cyber insurance, talking to your insurance professional, and having them evaluate what your risk is and what type of coverages you should have on there. And then also, most of your insurance professionals will be able to get you some good websites to tell you how to manage your risk in terms of training everybody. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. My contact information again is on the PowerPoint. I can be reached at channah@corcolinsurance.com. Thanks.